Shalom. Shalom, brothers and sisters. How's everybody doing? We hope, we pray that everybody is well and will be better. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4 in the comment section. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4 in the comment section. The purpose, brothers and sisters, in putting on some music is to do a little intro before the intro, if we will. All right. Now, what this presentation and giving honor to the Most High about, when you read, brothers and sisters, I'm trying to understand. That's Can y'all hear me well? If so, press the number 4. But what I'm trying to convey is, excuse me, this. In getting the point across and giving honor unto the Most High, this presentation is concerning Israel, archaeology, Hebrew, and so on, which is why earlier, if it was seen, I was saying, get your pens and your pads, because we are in part going to go over certain things linguistically. We're going to go over certain things in history and so forth. All right. So we definitely, bro. All right. So I know it could be heard because I put it onto mine. So what I'm asking the family to do is, if you do happen to hear, press 4. So that way I know it can be heard and how it's heard clearly. And say in that particular case, that's appreciated. So what we're going to do without any further ado, brothers and sisters, is go to the share screen, pull this up in that particular case. Thank you for that in that manner. And let us, without any further ado, get into this right here. We are on the platforms More Yeshiah Torah lessons, More Yeshiah Hebrew lessons, and More Yeshiah history lessons. Because in this presentation, we're going to be covering those different kind of aspects. All right. So let us go, if we will, right here. In this, we can be reached at the number 908-587-4841. This is brought to you in love and respect. The email, for those who do care to email me, is YYISRAEL, the number 22 at yahoo.com. Thank you for that, family. Israel, from the Hebrews and Egyptians. Now, what you're looking at, brothers and sisters, on the left-hand side, right? This was shown in the past. It's called the Danite Stele, or the Tel Dan Stele. And what you're seeing, brothers and sisters, right, when you take with the pen here, didn't mean to do that in that case, but what you see there highlighted in the white there, brothers and sisters, is the Beit, the Yod, the Tau, the Dalet, Waw, and the Dalet. So essentially what that spells is Beit Dawid, all right, which means essentially House of David, all right? So this is something we care to bring out for reference purposes. Now, what you're looking at, brothers and sisters, right? On top of that, as we get into this kind of matter, right here is, okay, it's not being my friend in that manner. So we want to just underline it. And say that particular case. And what that says there on top is the Mem, the Lamed, the Kaf, the Yod, the Sin, the Resh, the Aleph, and the Lamed, which in that particular case spells Melech Yisrael. All right. So King of Israel, Beit Dawid, the house of David, the king of Yisrael. The house of Yisrael being ruled by the house of David. So these are things that we care to bring out. Now, this was found, they said, dated, brothers and sisters, into the 8th century BCE. Some have stated the 9th century BCE. But it certainly, brothers and sisters, is say before the timing, brothers and sisters, we want to point out before the Israelites were besieged heavily by the Assyrians. And the point in mentioning that as we get into the history shows for reasoning. Now, what you're looking at on the right-hand side, brothers and sisters, is from the Meneptah stele. All right. Now, the Meneptah stele is also said by some to be the stele of Amenhotep III of Dynasty 18. Some people just say no, it's only of Meneptah of Dynasty 19. But brothers and sisters, within what is referred to as the New Kingdom of Egypt, going into quote archaeology, you would have it to where it would sit there and show you it's rare. And this right here, brothers and sisters, being circled shows it to be an R. Now, why does that become important? Because when you're dealing with what is referred to in linguistics as metathesis, what is an L in many other languages, brothers and sisters, when you transform it to Egyptian for lingual purposes, it becomes an R. All right. So I just want to point that out. You may want to notice, no disrespect intended, that none of the pharaohs before the Europeans came into the land of Egypt with the Ptolemy and everything like that, even though other African and Asiatic nations had an L in many cases in their language, Egyptians did not. So none of the pharaohs had an L inside of their name. When you go from Dynasty 1 all the way to Dynasty 31, you understand? So this is something that we care to sit there and point out in that particular case. Now, brothers and sisters, when you sit there and look at what is being circled right here as well, is the other R in that particular case. All right. Just want to sit there and show that in that manner right there, if we will. Thank you, family. In that particular matter, let's do it a little different. All right. So now this image that you see right here, brothers and sisters, sirs say as an A. This right here serves as what they called in hieroglyphic writing a matter of a flaxen reed, which brothers and sisters serves as an I in that particular case. All right. So there is no scholar, brothers and sisters, that will sit there and say whether they say it's dated to Meneptah or dated to the matter of Amenhotep III, that is saying that this is saying something different than the house of Yisrael. Now, when you read in your own account concerning what Meneptah and or brothers and sisters, we might want to say Amenhotep was talking about, were the different nations that was in that day and time, southern Canaan. You understand? And Israel being mentioned among them. So now, in many cases among Israelites, it is generally understood and said, okay, we don't need that. That's not for us to have to sit there and deal with and so forth and so on. But it doesn't hurt, brothers and sisters, to sit there and have some kind of information to sit there and have out for the people. All right. So let me, brothers and sisters, all right. Look at it, say in this particular matter here, no particular questions. So we're going to continue to move on as I watch it from the other screen. Thank you for that, family. All right. Now, brothers and sisters, let us, if we will, take a look at this. Now, we're going to sit there and show this, if we will, family. Right? This is in part where Judah was. You understand? Of course, the land is bigger than we may see on the map. That's obvious. You understand? But all these lands that you see right here and what they refer to in archaeology as or global matters, if you will, as the Levant and so forth and so on, are all mentioned inside of the scriptures. All right. It is not that perplexed that Egypt is mentioned many times in the scriptures. Judah obviously is mentioned many times in the scriptures. You understand? Now let's look. Before the year 1896, some may say that there's no mention of the Israelites by the Egyptians. What we went over and what we talked about in the Meneptah stele, brothers and sisters, is, believe it or not, found until 1896. So, and what we talked about, the Danite stele, was not found until 1994. So when people try to say, well, archaeology doesn't support certain things that the Bible also speaks upon, but in 1992, they would have sat there and said there's no external reference to David. In 1895, they probably would have said there's no mention of Israel inside the ancient Egyptian record. So as things begin to sit there and come out to be found, and so forth and so on, we may want to take heed to such. Now, having an open mind, Flinders Petrie is the Egyptologist that found what is referred to as the Meneptah stele that we spoke upon earlier, in, as we stated, 1896. Now, brothers and sisters, he's also one who does not deny the Exodus. When you look, brothers and sisters, at this particular map key right here, 1824 BCE and 671 BCE. 671 BCE kind of comes in importance to the house of Israel, because that is when you had the Assyrians going into the land of Egypt and defeating the people of the Egyptians. Now, in order to get from where Assyria was over here, brothers and sisters, in this particular case, to get to Egypt, 9 times out of 10, you're going to run into the Israelites. You understand? Now, let's remember, Israel, the people, was on both sides of the Jordan River, because you had the tribe of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh on the east side, and then you had the other tribe that was on the west side. Now, brothers and sisters, how do you know that the map that we see right here is one of the most accurate ones, as opposed to trying to say, think, or understand that the land of Israel is over here in the Western Hemisphere? Is because in Daniel chapter 7 and in the book of Numbers chapter 34, it speaks about the Great Sea. What Great Sea would the Israelites be talking about? That's something we care to point out. It's not something that we are seeing right here, but when Jonah went to Joppa to go and get a ship to Tarshish, Tarshish is Spain, brothers and sisters, called in the ancient world by some people as Cadiz, C-A-D-I-Z. You understand? So the Western Hemisphere is not where the land of Israel is. The land of Israel is in the Eastern Hemisphere. So let's look, brothers and sisters. When you go in your own time and you read about Titus of Rome, right, in the book of Josephus, it said that he crossed the desert, going from where modern day Palestine is, the land of Israel, into the land of Egypt. What desert in the Western Hemisphere would take you to where Egypt is? To that. There are some people, not trying to be funny, that want to just sit there and throw out ideas for the sake of just wanting to be confusing to others. So these are just some things to point out for reference purposes. All right. So when you go over here and you see Erech and Ur, Napur, Babylon, and so forth and so on, these are lands that are even spoken about in the book of Brother wrote, how one people took over another people and one people took over another people as time went on. Because over there you had what's called in ancient times the Sumerian people. Then you had like the Guti people, G-U-T-I. And then eventually you had the people known as the Babylonians. And northwest to them, you had the people known as the Assyrians. So now when you go in your own time and you read about Hamath, which is over here, Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, and then you have Haran, which is mentioned in the book of Kings. These are showing you where the biblical lands are. All right. So just want to point that out, if we will, for reference purposes. Thank you for that. Now, brothers and sisters, what we're going to do with the timing allotted is put it as so, and we're going to go and we're going to read what the scriptures there is showing us in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11. All right. So let's look, family, in that particular case. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. In Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11, we see the following. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord will set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people that shall remain from Assyria and from Egypt and from Patros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he will set up an ensign for the nations, and he will assemble the dispersed to Israel and gather together the scattered of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So, brothers and sisters, let's understand something. When we see this word right here, and in English, it is referred to as a conjunction. So you join in two thoughts together. Why do I point that out? Because there are some who, no disrespect intended, is saying that Israel stayed over in the east and only Israel, or pardon me, only Judah was scattered to the four corners of the earth. But that's not what it's saying. This is saying, and he, the Most High, will set up an ensign for the nations and will assemble the dispersed of Israel and gather together the scattered of Judah. So if we're talking about gathering together in one case, and if we're talking, brothers and sisters, about assembling, that means essentially the same thing. If you call it an assembly, you're calling the people together. If you are gathering the people together, you're causing them to come together. So you're causing the people by being called to all come together. So it's not as if Israel stayed in one place in the east and only Judah was scattered to the four corners of the earth. So these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. And it says the dispersed of Israel. And then it speaks upon the scattered of Judah. So now let's look, brothers and sisters. If we pull the PowerPoint back up, right? The outcast is Nikhe, the dispersed. So how are the people outcast and where are they cast out from if they're not being dispersed? So both Israel as a kingdom and a people and Judah as a kingdom and a people were dispersed and they became outcasts. So we want to emphasize that concerning Isaiah chapter 11. All right, brothers and sisters. Now, in the timing of Isaiah, which was dated, brothers and sisters, 50 years before Jeremiah, essentially, right? It is saying about some of the lands where they were scattered to, where they were outcast to. And it says that remained from Assyria and from Egypt and from Patros and from Cush and from Elam. Now let's look, brothers and sisters, right? If you go back here, we know Cush is Ethiopia, right? Hamath, we know we see over here, brothers and sisters. Assyria, we know, is up in here. And from Shinar, Shinar is the old term for the other term called Sumer. So all of these lands that we see in Isaiah chapter 11, where it also speaks about the islands of the sea. Now, brothers and sisters, let's understand something. The islands of the sea, we can easily identify, one being Cyprus, the other being Crete, and all the places that the book of Joel in the Bible talks about when it said that they had sold the children of Judah off to the people of Greece far from their border, meaning far from the border of where the children of Israel were initially. So these are things when we start talking about the scattering in history of the children of Israel, we begin to see they went east, south, west, northwest, northeast as well. They were being cast out of the land as we read in the prophecies. So these are things, again, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. Excuse me. So let's look, family, as we go back here in this particular case. In Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64, we want to emphasize this, if you will, right? Thank you for that, family. And it says this, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all peoples, from the one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. And there thou shalt serve other gods which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, even wood and stone. Now, brothers and sisters, What we want to emphasize is that in the King James Version, it ends in verse 68. In the Hebrew version of the Tanakh in the Hebrew scriptures, it ends in verse 69, which says this: These are the words of the covenant, which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. Horeb, brothers and sisters, is also known as Mount Sinai. So there was the covenant that was made at Mount Sinai that you see going from Exodus chapter 19 to Exodus chapter 24. And then you see the covenant that we see here in the land of Moab that we understand to be Deuteronomy 28. So now when we look at this right here in verse 64, where it says, "And the Most High will scatter you," meaning Israel, "among all peoples, from the one end of the earth even to the other end of the earth." So now when we go back here to Isaiah, brothers and sisters, right? Chapter 11, verse 11, and it speaks, verse 12, and it speaks about assembling the dispersed to Israel and gathering together the scattered to Judah. It should not be hard to understand what is being spoken upon. Where Israel was scattered, when we start talking about the matter that we're looking upon right here in these lands here in the east, was the beginning of it. Israel wound up being scattered more and more and dispersed more and more as time went on. When you go in your own time in the book of 1 Kings chapter 8, brothers and sisters, where it distinctly says in the prayer of Solomon, if your people are put out of the land, whether taken by the enemy far or near. So in Solomon's prayer in 1 Kings chapter 8, it speaks about if the Israelites were to be carried away captive, close to the land or far from the land. So after we were scattered, as we already been going over for some time, we were already taken captive far from our land. So brothers and sisters, again, these are certain things that we care to sit there and bring out, if we will, for reference purposes. All right. Sorry about that, family. Pull this up here, if we will. All righty. So we're going to continue, brothers and sisters, where we were in that manner. Thank you for that. We're going to go, brothers and sisters, to Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 26. All right. So we can gain some understanding on what we're talking about in this manner. Thank you for that. Jeremiah chapter 6. And let's see what this says in that particular case. All right. O daughter of my people, gird thee with sackcloth and wallow thyself in ashes. Make thee mourning as for an only son. Most bitter lamentation for the spoiler shall suddenly come upon us. I have made thee a tower and a fortress among my people, that thou mayest know and try their way. Now, let's look at this right here. When it starts to sit there and say, O daughter of my people, gird thee with sackcloth. In other words, gird thee in sadness, gird thee in clothes that's not the most becoming, and wallow thyself in ashes, not in riches. Make thee mourning as for an only son. In other words, you're going to wind up losing your future. Your children are your future. For the spoiler shall suddenly come upon us. This is talking, brothers and sisters, essentially in part after the Assyrian Empire done fell and Babylon was coming up. But for those who know the history, Assyria took Israel down as a kingdom and part of the kingdom of Judah down. When you go to 2 Kings 18. So now Babylon in their own right done defeated, brothers and sisters, Assyria by teaming up with the Medes, and then eventually will come against the house of Judah. But let's remember now, after Solomon's death, You had Israelites that were of the other tribes outside of Judah that was living in Judah, as the book of First Kings chapter 12 points out. So these are things that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. So what are we saying? You had Israelites that were not of Judah in Assyria, and Judah in Assyria, and Israelites that was not of Judah in Babylon, and Judah in Babylon. So this is why, brothers and sisters, you might see in the presentation earlier, right? When we were to go and say in Jeremiah, right, chapter 50, and let's look at it here and see what it says. It says in verse 17, Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First, the king of Assyria have devoured him. And last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, has broken his bones. Let's go down to verse 33, letting the book speak. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah are pressed together. So, brothers and sisters, we don't want to misunderstand Isaiah chapter 11 when it essentially says about the dispersed and the outcast being gathered together and being made to a symbol of Israel and Judah from the four corners of the earth. Because right here in Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33, it said the children of Israel and the children of Judah are pressed together. And right in verse 17, it talks about who did it. Initially, it distinctly says, Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven away. First, the king of Assyria had devoured him. And last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had broken his bones. So now, brothers and sisters, the book of Lamentations is a recount of what happened from the Israelite perspective of what happened when the southern kingdom of Judah done fell, after the northern kingdom of Israel done fell. So let's look and see, letting the book speak, right? If we go to Lamentations chapter 1, but we're going to be reading in chapter 2, in verse 5. Yah, the Lord, has become as an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all her palaces. He has destroyed his strongholds. And he has multiplied in the daughter of Judah mourning and moaning. What are we pointing out, brothers and sisters? Right in Lamentations 2, verse 5, it mentions again Israel and Judah. So we don't want to sit there and try to have people think that Israel is somewhere in the east living it up, brothers and sisters, and Judah is the only one suffering. All the 12 tribes are, as predicted, prophesied, I must say. Elders have corrected me upon that, concerning Deuteronomy 28. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to bring out, if we will, for reference purposes. All right. So let's look in this particular matter. Thank you for that. If we pull this back up, let's see. We want to go, brothers and sisters, into the book of Jeremiah, chapter 46, verse 1. All right. So we can gain some understanding of what's going on. Let's look and see right here, brothers and sisters. Jeremiah chapter 46, verse 1. Sorry about that. And it says, the word of the Lord which came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the nations of Egypt, concerning the army of Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, which was by the river Euphrates in Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, smote in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. What do we want to point out? During the time of the prophet Jeremiah, the king Josiah was assassinated by one of the Egyptian kings by the name of Necho. Now, what was going on historically is that Babylon, along with the Medes, was going up against Assyria and defeating them. The Egyptians siding with the Assyrians for whatever reason, attempted to sit there and go against Babylon. Judah, singing it, wanted to go out against them, and Judah lost that battle regarding that. This is dated, brothers and sisters, to we're talking 615 all the way down to 605 BCE in that particular 10-year span. So the children of Israel were definitely noted in history concerning this kind of matter. So let's go back, if we will, brothers and sisters, so we can sit there and show in part what we're talking about in Jeremiah 46, right? When you read what's going on in Jeremiah there, the Egyptian kings of Dynasty 26 were going through Judah and where they had met King Josiah, which you read of in the book of 2nd Chronicles. In order to go into this area here, called in other times the matter of Carchemish, Assyria was losing to Babylon, who was siding on with the people over here that you don't have on the map, but called the Medes. So Media and Babylon went up against Assyria. Egypt attempted by going through Judah to help Assyria. Judah didn't like it and essentially lost the battle to the Egyptians in Dynasty 26 of Egypt. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. So when we call this presentation right here, Israel, Hebrew, Archaeology, and outsourced material, this is why we're doing what we're doing in this particular case. You are welcome, brothers and sisters, to take a screenshot of what we're talking about now. Just real quick, if you will, brothers and sisters. All right, First Chronicles 5:25 talks about the tribes on the east side being taken captive. 2 Kings 16 talks about the tribes on the west side being taken captive. 2 Kings 18:13, brothers and sisters, speaks upon the matter of Judah being captive by the people of the Assyrians, namely Sennacherib going against King Hezekiah. But we do want to read for understanding purposes. All right, we're going to read, if we will, 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 25. All right, let's pull it up, family, and letting the book speak as we do. 2 Chronicles 30, verse 25. Hopefully everybody is well and will be better. So let's look at this, family, in this particular case. And it says the following. And all the congregation of Judah with the priests and the Levites and all the congregation that came out of Israel and the strangers that came out of the land of Israel that dwelt in Judah rejoiced. For there was not such great joy in Jerusalem since the time of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. There was not the like in Jerusalem. Now, what this is talking about, brothers and sisters, is when they were keeping the Passover, brothers and sisters. This is during the timing of King Hezekiah, because he had a commission to where it was like we are all going to keep the Passover. Now, what is one of the things we want to point out in this, family, is also 2 Chronicles 32, verse 7. Because we want to let the book speak. It's not just, oh, the brother said this and so forth. So 2 Chronicles 32, okay, let's do it this way. And let's see. This is still a matter what happened with Hezekiah, king of Judah. And it says that he's saying here, be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for the multitude that is with him. For there is a greater with us than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us, Yah Eloheinu, the Lord our God, to help us and to fight our battles. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. So what do brothers and sisters we care to point out? Sorry about that. If we will, in that particular case, to keep it 100. We're going to take an intermission. We're going to take an intermission and play some music. Thank you for that, family. Shalom, shalom. Can I be heard well? If so, I'm going to have to ask family, press the number 4. We're back live. If I can be heard well and you in good spirits, please press the number 4. Thank you for that, family, in that particular case. All right. I had to sit there and take a call. I do apologize for that particular matter in that particular case. Let us continue, brothers and sisters, and thank you for the time to join us on Day and Night Publications concerning this matter, about the matter of Israel, Hebrew, archaeology, and outsourced material. All right, let's pull up, if we will, again, the particular PowerPoint, and letting those scriptures speak upon said such. What were we talking about, brothers and sisters, for those who may have just joined upon us and just may have just joined with us, is we are talking scripturally about the dispersing of the children of Israel, in that it was just not Israel or just not Judah, but rather as both Israel and Judah. So these are things we care to point out for reference purposes. All right. So now let's look at this here as we have gone over Deuteronomy 28:64. In the past, the Hebrew of such says, Where pitzka yod he wahe, bakal ha'amim, migze ha'aretz, wa'ad kweze ha'aretz, wa'abata sham Elohim akerim, ashalo yadata, ata wa'aboteka etz wa'eben. Now, brothers and sisters, what we're reading right here, again, brothers and sisters, is Deuteronomy 28, verse 64, which we read earlier. All right, but in English. Let us point out some things, if we will, right, with the matter here. Let's look. Right, what you see highlighted there in the, or backdrop, or backlighted, if you will. Ata, that means you. Okay, and let's look at this. Ab means father. So now when you look at this right here, brothers and sisters, and we're going to show this in the red, right? Aboteka means your fathers. All right. This ka, brothers and sisters, show bold and not bold, bold and then not bold. Brothers and sisters, shows it to be your. Anytime in Hebrew, which is why this is on more of Yeshiah Hebrew lessons, right? Anytime you have this ka sound, right? Let's emphasize this, if we will. Going to make that capsule feet bigger. And we want to sit there and backdrop this color in green. If it's connected to a noun, which is a person, place, a thing, it means you or whatever. When it's connected to a verb, it means you whatever. All right, just want to point that out. So now let's look at this right here. You have this verb here. We're going to sit there and show this in the color of blue. Yadata. It comes from the Hebrew verb yada, which means to know. All right. Looking at it in that particular case, we understand this to be in the past tense because you have this tau shown in the bold, not bold, bold, not bold. And we're going to enlarge this, if we will, to 60. And yada means to know in root. Yadata means you knew. And so we know it to be in the past tense because the pronoun of such is shown as a suffix. All right. So these are just some of the things we care to go over in the Hebrew concerning this. Now, remember, we just said, brothers and sisters, that when you have this ka here, bold, not bold, bold, not bold, we color coding these things. All right. Shown there in the backdrop color of green, but it's red self, the calso feet. That means your whatever when connected to a noun, which is a person, place, or thing, correct? Now, when again, this ka sound, when this particular matter, brothers and sisters, is shown with the verb, if we will, family, right? As in the beginning of it, it means you whatever. So let's look at this right here. This word, we're going to sit there and show in the purple there, right? And then we have this ka as the other one. We're going to enlarge it, going over some Hebrew in this particular case. We're going to show it, if we will, here, bold, not bold, bold, not bold, in that particular matter. So this is a verb, hey, peace, which means to scatter, right? And he will scatter you. This ka, brothers and sisters, shown, we're going to show this in the blue, means you. What do we want to point out with just these couple of things right here being color coded? Is the word hey peats, brothers and sisters, is a verb meaning to scatter. This kapso feet serving as a suffix means you. Anytime ka is added as a suffix to a verb, it means you. When ka, as in over here, brothers and sisters, is added as a suffix to a noun, it means your. Are there any questions? Please let me sit there and see in the chat comments. All right, there's no questions concerning that in that particular case. So let us continue in that. And again, I can be reached even by text at 908-587-4841. Again, this is Deuteronomy 28, 64, if we will, but in Hebrew. All right. So let us continue going over a couple of things there with the prefixes, the suffixes, the verbs, nouns, how things work, and so forth and so on. All right. Let's continue in this particular part here. It goes to say, therefore fear thou not, O Jacob, my servant, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall again be quiet and at ease, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee. For I will make a full end of all the nations, whether I have scattered thee, but I will not make a full end of thee. For I will correct thee in measure, and will not utterly destroy thee. So, brothers and sisters, what are we able to point out in this particular case? This is coming, brothers and sisters, out of the book of Jeremiah, that the Most High will make a full end of the nations where Israel was scattered, but will not make a full end of the house of Israel. So all we have to do, as it says in Deuteronomy and in Joshua, and also as we read King Hezekiah saying, Chazak ve'amat, be strong and of good courage. You understand? Every nation in history that came up against Israel failed to exist as a nation. The Babylonians, not around. The Assyrians, not around. And in the book of Zechariah, it said that the Most High will seek to destroy all the nations that came up against Jerusalem. So these kingdoms that we see ruling now, they definitely have a time limit upon them. So we need to know and understand that and get our act together. So when the remnant is called, we could be, say, a part of such. All right. So just want to point that out for reference purposes. Let's continue, family. Now, in the portion we're going to read here, in 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 32, and this is not to shame the house of Israel, but let's read this, family. And he reared up an altar for Baal and a house of Baal, which he had built in Samaria. This is talking about King Ahab, brothers and sisters, of the northern kingdom. The same Ahab that married Jezebel, the Zidonian Canaanite lady, which leads you into getting into the matter of the Phoenicians, which we're going to do a study on as time goes on. All right, subscribe to the channel, we ask you. In Deuteronomy 28:14 says, and shall not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. So what caused the kingdom, the northern kingdom of Israel, to fail was worshiping other gods. Idolatry was one of the biggest crimes. Not that you should do any other ones. What caused there to even be a northern and southern kingdom was because Israel began to follow the idols that sadly Solomon brought in. Solomon, son of David, brought in the idols, which in turn caused there to be a northern and southern kingdom. The northern kingdom having 20 kings, none of them being righteous, brothers and sisters, led the people deeper into idolatry. And one of those kings was Achab or Ahab, king of Israel, that we just read of in the book of 1 Kings, dealing with the Baal matter, if you will. So, brothers and sisters, these are things that we care to bring out for reference purposes. Now, in the book of Amos, chapter 5, we see the following. Hear ye this word which I take up for a lamentation over you, O house of Israel. But seek not Beit El, nor enter into Gilgal, and pass not to Be'er Sheba, for Gilgal shall surely go into captivity, and Beit El shall come to naught. So, what do we want to point out in this particular case? Amos was a prophet, actually, that prophesied before Isaiah. Did you know that? And what he is saying is that Beit El, which was called Luz before the timing of Jacob, is where it says, don't seek that way because they're not doing the right thing. Nor enter into Gilgal. Gilgal, correct me if I'm wrong, is where the children of Israel was in the time of Joshua when they was making a covenant. Let's continue. If I stand to be corrected, let me know. And pass not to Be'er Sheba. Be'er Sheba, brothers and sisters, is in the southern part of Israel where the tribe of Simeon was. That's where the prophet Samuel's sons were as well. For Gilgal shall surely go into captivity, which is one of their major cities of ancient Israel. And Beit El shall come to naught. So now, Israel as a kingdom, while still in existence as a kingdom in the timing of Amos, was already said to be falling due to dealing in their idols. We're going to read, brothers and sisters, I wanted to get it off the shelf there. In the book of Hebrewisms of West Africa, as pointed out there, page 123 and page 124. And it goes to say this. Historically, the obliteration of the northern kingdom may be concisely told. The disintegration began when Tiglath-Pileser, the Assyrian monarch, meaning the Assyrian king, in his campaign of 733 to 732 BCE, overthrew Damascus and invaded northern Israel. Referred to Archaeology of the Bible by George Barton. Goes on to say, in consequence of this invasion, J.M. Powell Smith tells us Israel lost the territory east of the Jordan. Now, brothers and sisters, when we start talking about Israel losing their territory east of the Jordan, we're talking about this area, brothers and sisters, if we look right here, right? We want to show with the laser pointer. This is the Jordan that you see right there shown with the laser pointer. So the territory east of such, brothers and sisters, was lost to the Assyrians. All right? Want to point that out in that particular case. Then it goes on to say, going into Hebrewisms of West Africa, page 123, it goes on to say that the king Sargon completed the work that had begun by his predecessor, Shalmaneser, finally capturing Samaria, which had held out for a 3-year siege. The conqueror thus recorded his triumph, saying this of the house of Israel: I besieged and captured Samaria. I carried away 27,290 of its inhabitants. I collected there, THERE, 50 chariots. The remains of them I permitted to retain their goods, put my governors over them, and I laid the tribute of former kings upon them. Do you know what tribute is called today? Mortgage, taxes, rent. That's what tribute is. And if you don't pay it, they besiege you. They'll send their marshals. If you didn't pay in the ancient world, they'll sit there and send their generals. So when we start talking about a matter of being besieged, we're still being besieged every month, called bills. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to talk about for reference purposes. It goes on to say this. The downfall of Samaria, which was the capital, brought about the end of the northern kingdom, which now became an Assyrian province. Natives of other parts of the Assyrian Empire were imported to take the place of the 27,000 deported citizens. So what happened? When you go now, brothers and sisters, in your own time, and you read in Isaiah chapter 1, and it says, strangers devour your land in your presence, it's not that hard to figure what Isaiah is talking about. Because when the northern kingdom of Israel fell, during the time of the prophet Isaiah, you had other people that were also under the Assyrian hegemony that were replaced into the house of Israel's land. All right? So just want to point that out, if we will. Let's continue, family. Now, when we start talking about with a different kind of map here, we are going to be looking at this right here, right? Reuben, Gad, Manasseh on the east side of the Jordan. Then you had Simeon, which actually lived in Judah, and the tribe that was on the west side of the Jordan. So the first attacks actually came first upon the tribe of Naphtali, brothers and sisters, then upon the parts that's over here. When the Israelites on the side of the Jordan eastward was taken captive. So you had Naphtali first, Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben that was taken. So now, from where Naphtali is, you had Zebulun and Asher, which is part of the people that King Hezekiah was talking to when you go to 2 Chronicles 30 that we read earlier, when he was trying to get the people to be motivated to keep the Passover. So let's continue. The Assyrian kings didn't have to just go through with Zebulun, Issachar, Manasseh, that is to say on the west side of the Jordan, and where their capital was over here, brothers and sisters, in Samaria, in the land of Ephraim. So what is going on? The northern kingdom, from Dan here, Ephraim, and up, and the tribes on this side, the east of the Jordan, taken over by the Assyrians. The southern kingdom that we see there in the yellow and in the orange included that of Benjamin, many of the Levites, and Simeon along with Judah in that particular case. Any questions, please feel free to put it into the chat. Now, let's look. Israelite history as it relates to the world. This book that we are advertising here, a brother wrote it. You can get it by title or by looking up my author name, Vincent Hutchinson, online and getting it on Amazon. To the brothers and sisters who did support and buy books over the course of years, thank you. It's definitely appreciated. 2 Chronicles chapter 33 and Jeremiah 15. And Manasseh made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to err, so that they did evil more than the nations whom the Lord destroyed before the children of Israel. Now, King Hezekiah had to deal with Sennacherib, the king of Assyria. As did King Manasseh have to deal with Sennacherib, as well as Ashurbanipal of Assyria. We've already read earlier Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33 and verse 17. Let's see what Jeremiah 15 says. Then said the Lord unto me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind cannot be toward this people. Cast them out of my sight and let them go forth. And I will cause them to be a horror unto all the kingdoms of the earth, because of Manasseh the son of Hezekiah king of Judah, for all which he had done in Jerusalem. So what are we seeing? Manasseh was the successor of King Hezekiah that we've been speaking upon. His wickedness politically did the righteousness that King Hezekiah put into naught. So we don't want to sit there and continue that kind of legacy. You don't want to sit there and continue having the good deeds of your parents to go to naught because you're not living right. Carry the baton of living upright. That's one of the things we promote on the platform as well. All right, family, let's continue. Get your pens and pads and take notes. The dispersion of the Jews began with the sack of Jerusalem in 587 BC, when Nebuchadnezzar carried the inhabitants of the southern kingdom of Judah away into captivity beyond the Euphrates. Some of them or their children settled so happily in their place of exile that when Cyrus overthrew Babylon in 538, meaning 538 BCE, and rescinded the decree of banishment, that in other words, people were able to go back to their lands, they chose to remain permanently in Babylonia and Mesopotamia, formed the nucleus of what eventually became one of the largest and most important of the communities of the diaspora during the Roman period, the Jews of Parthia. Let's continue. Immigration from Palestine to Egypt was one of the side effects of the exile, and Cambyses' annexation of Egypt in 525 BCE is said to have brought Jews, that's to say, of the house of Israel, to that country, in other words, to Egypt. But the big influx of Jews into Egypt began with the foundation of Alexandria and continued under Ptolemies until the 1st century AD. The Jews of Egypt could be, though probably with some exaggeration, at 1 million. Cyrenaica, that is to say where Libya is, was another popular center of Jewish settlement, meaning of the house of Israel, from the 3rd century BC. Ptolemy I sent Jewish colonists to secure Cyrene, which is Libya, by the way, and other Libyan cities, and excuse me, and as Cyrenaica, if I mispronounce it, let me know, family, remained under the Ptolemaic rule until it was bequeathed to Rome in 96 BC. Immigrant from Egypt continued. Jews formed a significant proportion of the population of the city of Cyrene, and by the 1st century BC, when according to Strabo, it comprised 4 groups: citizens, farmers, resident aliens, and Jews. And events in the late 1st and early 2nd centuries AD testified to the size and wealth of the Jewish settlements in the province as a whole. Now, brothers and sisters, when you are citing a source, you have to cite it for respect purposes as they wrote it. We know when it says Jew and Jewish, it's talking about Hebrew Israelites or the house of Israel. All right? Any questions? Let me know. From a source. As the slaves came down to Fida, which is by Ghana of today, from the inland country, they were put in a booth or prison near the beach. And when the Europeans are to receive them, they are brought onto the large plain where the ship's surgeons examine every part of every one of them, from the smallest member, men and women being stark naked. Such as are allowed good and sound are set on one side, marked on the breast with a red-hot iron, imprinting the mark of the French, English, or Dutch companies. The branded slaves, after they were returned to their former booths, where they await shipment, sometimes 10 to 15 days. Then they were packed aboard the slave ships in spaces not much bigger than coffins, chained together in the dark, wet slime of the ship's bottom, choking in the stench of their own excrement. The height sometimes between decks was only 18 inches, that's to say 1.5 feet, so that the unfortunate human beings could not turn around or even on their sides, the elevation being less than the breadth of their shoulders. And here they are usually chained to the decks by the neck and legs. In such a place, the sense of misery and suffocation is so great that the Negroes, driven to frenzy. This is an account from somebody named John Bobbitt concerning what they saw concerning the Atlantic slave trade. Let's continue. So when we talk about FIDA, Ghana, Nigeria on map, it's the area as you see going further in that area. Negro land. where many were captured and brought to where the water was, being marched to where the ships were. Wanted to point that out. Most of the blacks captured most of the blacks captured and brought to the Western Hemisphere came from the Igbo, Ewe, Baifada, Bakongo, Wolof, Bambara, Sereri, Bibia, and Arada peoples. Only about 6% of the slaves transported to the Americas came directly to British North America. About 40% were landed in Brazil, where Portuguese colonial slave masters used huge numbers of Angolan and Congolese slaves to cultivate sugarcane. This is why it makes no sense to divide the black man in the West Indies and the black man in South America and the black man in North America. Brothers and sisters, in giving honor and praise unto the Most High, Creator, the maker of heaven and earth, we pray that everybody is well and will be better. There is only one thing I must ask of the family. If you do hear me well, brothers and sisters, I ask you, please let me know in the comment section so I know how it sounds on your end. All right. That is something that I try to make sure I have a good microphone. I try to make sure brothers and sisters having good sound quality. And I'm open again to constructive criticism. All right. My telephone number is 908-587-4841. I haven't been online in a while and haven't done a lesson in a while, but we continue and intend on doing so on Day Night Publications. All right. With that, hopefully everybody is well. Shalom.